You're listening to a Pop House Network podcast for developers by developers.
Hello and welcome to the Stackd podcast, episode 81? Or was it 82? God, I wish I knew. Hold on. It's easy to find this out by going to stackpodcast.com, where, yes, it is 81. All right, so this is episode 81, recorded on April 24th, 2026, and this is now our third recording for the year, so we're actually finally getting a cadence. So hopefully we'll be able to do this every month or so going forward. I know summer is always hard for us, but hey. So we have two of our hosts. Josh cannot be here today, but Dano and Ian are here. Hello, guys.
Hey, everyone.
Hey.
Good to see you guys. So what have you been up to?
Go ahead, Ian.
All right, I'll go first. Still, like we live in interesting times, right? So it's never a dull moment. Just learning, and iterating, furiously with AI tools, trying to build something useful, and learning about a lot of interesting different technologies I didn't use before, like really pushing like Mongo DB to the limit, Redis to the limit. Playing around, exploring some Cassandra lately, looking into that. I haven't decided to jump in yet. Claude was cautioning me, like, if you're going to learn Cassandra, you're going to need at least 2-3 weeks of, just study time.
Oh, really? That's interesting.
Yeah. So looking at different, kind of NoSQL, scalable NoSQL deployments and technologies. But no, things are good, just really enjoying actually, like learning about new technologies with AI, helping me kind of flatten the learning curve. Things are good. How about you, Dano? How are things with you?
Good. I just got done with a SDD, Spec-Driven Development seminar for No Fluff. And, just being a hypocrite at all. Because I had a post, it wasn't even too long ago, that I'm like cool on AI and I don't trust AI and I don't like the environmental damage and the list of data centers that are being put up and taking everyone's water. And I'm like, I hate AI. And then here I am doing a spec-driven development seminar, but such is the way of the world, I guess. But my thesis on this last seminar that I just did a couple hours ago was that Cucumber, your BDD specs, should be your specs and not just made up specs that a lot of SDD is currently doing right now. So I went in with an agenda, and I think I ran away with a couple of points on there.
That's cool. Now here's a question. Did you try doing a comparison of one of these generic? I guess you can't really do a straight up comparison because because there's no format. It's like, okay, well,
it's still Wild West, and I think once everyone falls into a convention, which I think is probably going to be hard fought because everyone has their own ideas on how to do it. There's one called GSD, which is getting shit done. Sorry, I had to cuss.
No, I've seen that.
And GSD is something I want to consider a pick on my end, but just there are a lot of things out there: SpecKit, OpenSpec, Kiro, and Claude Code. I don't know if that's officially like a spec-driven development framework, but it's something that everybody has a different opinion on. So we'll see where it ends up.
Yeah, but I agree with you. Like not that I've tried. I'm not done like full born spec-driven development. I have like done plans and iterated over them before I've done implementation.
Right.
But I have done BDD in the past with Cucumber, and I did like the fact that it kind of forced you to think through things and how things are supposed to work. And
right. And get the business people along with it. I think a lot of the spec-driven developments, like, oh yeah, we developers know everything. The hell with the business folks, but like BDD is essential for like, hey, we got to communicate with the business people. So and that was all my thesis there.
Very cool.
Speaking of Cucumber, guys, I became a maintainer on a Cucumber framework for Swift. open
Sweet.
source project, and we just had a release last about 2 weeks ago. So I'm gonna add that to our notes.
What's the name of it?
Yeah,
Is it
yeah, please
clever? Is it
do.
a clever name?
Cucumber Swift.
Oh, that's very clever. Nice,
But it's
nice.
been great. I was shopping for frameworks and I found this one, and I thought this is the most elegant approach I've seen so far for Swift,
Cool. I'll
Cucumber
take a
and
look.
Swift. And I said, I'm just gonna submit some PRs. This looks great. And the guy, reached out and he's like, "Hey, we're looking for maintainers." And so I just got involved, and we had some PRs submitted by, obvious, users that wrote the PR with Claude Code or whatever, with some LLM tool. They openly said it. Yeah, I wrote this with Claude. Is it useful for you? I don't know. Maybe. I looked at it and said, okay, well, it looks kind of useful. I ran it. I ran it locally. I showed it to my Claude Code instance and said, what do you think? Oh, this PR looks good and stuff. We kind of iterated on it a few times. So it's interesting. Like, and definitely some important bugs got fixed that way too. So, or at least features that we've been wanting to implement for a while that finally we, some reporting issue and stuff that we managed to fix. But it's
Nice.
great. Like, and it's so important to have good BDD tools like with AI, right? So you absolutely need good specs. Like that's great, Dan, that you're doing a spec-driven development. I looked at some of those tools as well, like the GSD and the superpowers. There's a few of those repos out there that like package all the skills, and now the skills are actually getting standardized too, right? You have the
Yeah.
AI skills, uh, agent skills website that's trying to standardize that. And anyway, lots of cool stuff going on in the AI space right now.
Yeah, definitely. So speaking of AI, I was at Arc of AI last week, which is Venkat Subramanian and his wife's conference in Austin, Texas. And I love that conference. So it's great to go back. I was there last year, and I went this year, and I did a talk on MCP and A2A, like the actual underlying protocols, and then some of the other like aspects around them, like we didn't really get to the other stuff because we ran out of time, but I was going to talk about how skills are related and how plugins are related and all that kind of stuff. But it was really fun to kind of just go through like from the protocol level, like how the specs work and everything. And that conference is a lot of fun. So if anyone wants to go to an AI conference next year, definitely check that one out. I should mention the other thing that happened is I don't know if anyone who's listening to this podcast remembers, but I have over the years, last couple of years, mentioned something called speaker tracks I was working on as a side project for people who speak at conferences. And actually, last week we finally released it as a limited beta. So if you're interested, check out speakertracks.com. And I'm just glad I just last week someone asked me like, hey, I signed up and nothing happened. I was like, you know what? I'm almost there. We're going to release the additional version. So there's still a lot of work to do. But at least it's out there. People can sign up and log in and stuff. So, um, but we do have a couple awesome guests who have been patiently waiting here. I'm happy to introduce Arjan Tijms. Hello, Arjan.
Hi there.
And Ondro Mihályi. I know I pronounced it wrong, but as
Perfect. That was
well.
perfect.
Um,
Hello.
and they are here from OmniFish, and I've known these guys for a long time, and I'm really happy to have them on. So welcome, guys.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for having us. So we're quite happy to be at the podcast.
Yeah. So they before we get into more details about you guys, why don't you just give yourself like a actually no, this is what I do. I do the intro. I forgot. All right. So Aryan, here's Aryan's bio. Aryan Times is the co-founder of Jakarta EE support company OmniFish and is currently project lead for a number of Jakarta products, including Jakarta Security, Authentication, Authorization, Faces, and Expression Language. And if you haven't, even if you haven't worked with Jakarta EE, you've definitely worked with the expression language. Let me tell you that. So even if you've worked with Spring, it's basically a cousin of the expression language in Jakarta EE. So he's the co-creator of the popular OmniFaces library for JSF that was a 2015 Duke's Choice Award winner and is the author of 3 books on Jakarta EE. He has been active as an EG member under the JCP for JSF, JSR 372, and Security API, and has participated as a member in the Jakarta EE steering and specification committees. So there is the wonderful
Yeah,
overview of
pretty
Aryan.
much it. Yeah, indeed.
Nice, nice. So yes,
Yeah,
I have to say, like, I'm on a lot of the Jakarta emailing list, and Arjan's like always there. Like, there's always something he's doing. So
Yeah, I'm quite active in a lot of projects. So like for these projects, I'm the project lead. But for a bunch of other projects, I'm committed or just like lurking around, making comments, helping things come together. Like I was specifically the EE11 co-coordinator
oh
together
yeah,
with.
right,
So
right.
that was interesting. I did that together with Ed Burns, a long time JSF spec lead and overall Jakarta member. So he did step down recently, so he works at Microsoft now, so he's not that involved anymore. But it was quite nice to do EE11 together with him.
Yeah, that was really cool. So
Yeah, and
all
I'm
right.
generally trying to get like everybody a bit on the same page. And that's not always easy because people have so many different opinions and
Yeah, and different agendas and different levels of engagement. But yeah,
exactly.
it's a hard process. So. All right, and Ondro is I forgot the title. Arjan's title is Director of Software Engineer of OmniFish. Ondro,
The thing is the same thing
I
because we
know.
co-founded the company and we have the same Ondro in the
Yeah,
company.
we're pretty much at the same level. So I'm a bit
Yes,
more into the specs, the Jakarta EE specs. Andro is a bit more into marketing and commercial stuff, but otherwise we're the same,
We're
basically.
not much into titles, so we have the same titles as
Yeah,
together with the third co-founder. But even though we do something differently, I'm more like leading the all coordinating everything, and
right.
Arjan is more engineering stuff, but I also do some engineering
Nice, nice.
there.
Well, Ondro is a Java champion, leader of the Czech Java user group, and a conference speaker. He's an active contributor to the Jakarta EE community and its specifications. He co-founded OmniFish, the company behind the development of Eclipse Glassfish. So if you didn't know what OmniFish is, now you know. Um, and we'll talk a little bit more about Glassfish and what it is and why it's still relevant for those who would know of the older version soon. But thanks so much for having you guys. And I noticed that separation between the two of you, and I felt like Ari was a little more technical in terms of at least your role. Um, and I see more posts from Andro about stuff. So I figured that was more of the marketing side.
yeah,
I'm trying to be the face of the company, and that's also what I did in the past. Like we both worked at Pyara before. I was
Right.
also more the guy that goes to conferences, talks about Pyara and Jakarta EE and stuff, and Arjan was more like architecting the next version of Pyara, and he's now doing most of the same thing there.
yeah.
While
We
I
basically
I
continue.
also you know,
Yeah, so
I
now
also
working on the next
started.
version of Glassfish again. So it's a bit indeed in that same direction. We have a third co-founder, David, who is taking care of like all the tiny nitty-gritty that's like very deep in the code, like all those
Right.
race conditions and performance issues that may or may not be there, and he's taking care of those things. So we do have a great division of responsibilities there, I think, while still being at the same level. So that's interesting.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. Nice. Okay. All right, so let's get into it. We have a few news items as usual, and then of course, as usual, we will barrage you guys with questions, which is great. So for industry news, probably the biggest one for us in the Java land is that Oracle has laid off 30,000 employees, and some of whom we know, including Shar, who was basically the face of the Java community at Oracle. Um, so this is a big deal. And I think this is sort of the broader, we've talked about this in the past, I think there's sort of like three different levers with all the layoffs, right? One is it's a good reason to lay people off because you can say it's AI and you can get rid of whoever you want because of AI. Two is um, a theoretically there may be some productivity gains, although I don't think that's really what Oracle is saying. But some companies say they don't need as many employees because they have all this AI stuff, right? And then three is, which I think is also probably the biggest reason, is just a pivot of the focus of the company, which means you shift resources. So, Oracle is doing all this data center stuff. They've been spending lots of money on it, and investors are like, hey. where's our return on investment? You're building all this crap and like so Oracle's like, hey, we'll just get rid of like, a third of our company. And that'll make the investors happy. But that's my take on it. What do you guys think?
Yeah, so it's
But
been
one
quite
one of
hard for us specifically too. So we would actually be working together with some of the guys that have been let go by Oracle. So it's basically the entire Jersey team from the perspective of
Oh,
Oracle.
really? I did not
And
realize
Jersey
that.
is a big
Wow.
project. Like,
That's a huge deal.
yeah, it's a
oh
committed access to the
Jersey and also Eclipse Link
an
basically.
Eclipse link. Yeah, so it's a committed have access to the downloads. It's like in the millions per month. It's like really big, Jersey.
Wow.
And it was essentially unstaffed. Like, it's crazy when you think of it. Like John Sepol, the biggest committer for Jersey, after like years and years of working on it, like all this institutional knowledge that he has about Jersey, and then one day he's just gone. So yeah, that's quite hard for us. And Eclipse Link, as Ondro just mentioned, the same thing. We had the Lucas there, Fogman, and they both left together with some other guy.
So for those who don't know, can you just explain what Jersey and Eclipse Link are?
Yeah, so Jersey is the Jakarta REST implementation, previously known as JAX-RS. JAX-RS is used by a lot of other frameworks besides Jakarta. It's of course used by GlassFish, Payara, um, Fujitsu uses
I
it.
think isn't it like the default implementation of Spring REST or REST part of the Spring
Well, I
MVC?
think
I'm
I
not
think
really
they
sure.
usually I know they support it and I think it's included, but I think they usually tell people to use Spring MVC annotations instead. Um,
Yeah, they put it on top, but
oh, it's
underneath,
on
I
top, you
think
think? Okay.
Jersey's something like Tomcat is the default HTTP server.
Yep.
I think
Yep.
Jersey is the default REST engine
Implementation. Okay.
underneath.
Yeah, I think
So
Dropwizard is using Jersey too. Uh,
That makes sense. Yes, I think I did that. Actually, I used
Yeah,
Quarkus a long
but
time ago.
that's a big use for Jersey. It used standalone a lot, so companies just take Jersey, add some lifts to it, and build their own stack based on that. So basically, what other people use Tomcat for as a base, then like Jersey is a bit of like a higher level base to do stuff on.
Yep.
So yeah, that's a difficult situation. Luckily, the guys do still some commits, even though they're not working for Oracle anymore.
Hmm.
Because like the Eclipse Foundation rules are, you are a committer based on your own name, even when you're like employed by company. When a company
Right.
lets you go, you do have to rearrange your paperwork with Eclipse Foundation. But other than that, you remain a committer. Like all your status things are being kept. So yeah, they are doing some things now and then, but of course, it's not the same as when it's your full-time job.
Exactly. Exactly. And Eclipse Link is the Eclipse JPA implementation, right?
Exactly, exactly. So that one goes back like a long, long, long time. It predates Hibernate. It was actually the first one to have these lightweight POJOs as persistent entities. Hibernate was later on, I think, based on it. So yeah, that's also quite a thing. It's being used a lot too. WebSphere uses it, for instance, OpenLiberty, GlassFish and Piara, obviously. It's maybe not used that much compared to Hibernate. Hibernate does see a lot more downloads and users, but still, it's the second biggest one. And main thing is that without Eclipse Link being in the game, Hibernate kind of gets the monopoly on the Jakarta persistence. They
Right.
were the only one
Right.
left. We had OpenJPA in the past, so OpenJPA unfortunately also is kind of don't want to say dead, but there's not much activity there. So yeah, without Eclipse Link balancing the game of specifications, it's going to be hard for the Jakarta persistence team.
Yeah. Yeah. Definitely. Huh. So yeah. So I think this is gonna have a pretty all these different layoffs in different areas are going to have a pretty big impact on the ecosystem. I mean, we're already seeing it now.
Yeah,
So
exactly. And the weird thing is still that like Oracle is working on WebLogic still, but then their main experts in various important fields like REST and persistence, they have been let go. So the remaining WebLogic engineers, they somehow have to manage, I guess. Same goes for the Eladon guys. They also use Jersey.
also, I know there was one person I was working with on Helidon last year who got laid off, and so I don't know if they're cutting that staff as well. So I don't know. Are the Micronaut guys still safe? Because I know that underpins a lot of the Oracle Cloud stuff. So
Yeah.
maybe that's still there.
Yeah, I think the Oracle guys working with Micronaut, as far as I've heard, they still seem to be safe. And indeed, they are the underpinning of what's called the OCI or so from Oracle.
Yeah, Oracle Cloud Infrastructure or that something like that. I don't know.
Yeah, it's the cloud that powers media streaming things, I guess.
Okay. Okay.
And they are Micronaut powered. Yeah.
Okay. Gotcha. All right. Yeah. Fun times.
But
I'm sorry, Gondra. Go ahead.
yeah, I think Micronaut, like, not the whole team is under Oracle. I think they just hired some of the core Micronaut
Okay. Okay.
people. It's unlike Halidon, where Halidon, the whole team who is behind Halidon is in Oracle, and now they compete
Right.
against each other. It's kind of weird.
Yeah, it
But
is kind
also
of
Halidon team stayed, at least, yeah, I think the core Halidon team stayed also, but they kind of have
okay.
problem too because Halidon also relies on Jersey for REST stuff,
Right.
and all those people that left Oracle maintaining Jersey, they are they will be missed in Halidon team too, because now the Halidon team has to somehow support Jersey or find a way how to replace it with something else.
Now, I don't know
Yeah.
how they're going to do that. Are they going to switch completely to the JBoss stack of things, like switch over to REST Easy, perhaps? I have no idea.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see. I don't know.
It would be weird, but then if they use all the JBoss components, I mean, why would people not just use Quarkus instead of Halidon?
Oh, but very different, like in terms of ergonomics. I mean, maybe if you're just using microprofile, but they both seem to have their own sort of unique set of features, I think. Um,
Yeah, they do, but like from practice, and now, of course, I have a partial view in the world in that respect, but I do see with some customers that they like to move to Helidon when they came from WebLogic, uh,
mm,
and they
that
move
makes
to
sense.
Quarkus when they move from, say, a JBoss EAP, because the
Right.
stacks are similar-ish. So when you're already have a lot of code making use of Eclipse Link, and as we all know, that Jakarta Persistence is not completely portable between JPA providers, you would rather stick and stay with Eclipse Link and not move to Hibernate and then retest all your queries. I
Yeah.
did that before with OpenJPA to Eclipse Link,
Hmm.
and like I know from a very big customer I'm working with that they had like years of issues in that transition, so that wasn't so good.
Okay. Okay.
Just to add a little technical flavor to that conversation, I was just recently working on an old code base I have that used both JaxRS and Hibernate for JPA, and was learning about like OWASP top 10 issues, the mass assignment vulnerability. Do you guys ever hear about that one? It's a sort of a natural outcome of combining JaxRS with Hibernate. Basically, you put a REST API on top of your persistence layer, and next thing you know, people are uploading private keys and taking over other people's accounts. Like, that's literally what happened to GitHub. They got now it became an OWASP top 10, the mass assignment vulnerability. So I was kind of going through that because the last thing I like to do when I build like RESTful apps with the persistence or on persistence layer is add a DTO plumbing layer in the
Yeah,
middle. It's just
yeah,
never want to do that. It's the worst thing. It's like
Yeah,
reminds me of struts. Before JSF, we had to do that. That
yeah.
plumbing
Yeah,
nightmare,
I can do.
right?
I
So
think
never want to
Eclipse
go back.
Link. I think Eclipse Link also has a module that exposes like JPA entities as
Yeah,
REST
yeah, yeah.
endpoints and REST
So it's
resources, but it's really
yeah.
not safe. It's,
No, I got inspired to ask Claude, like, how can we actually mitigate that without giving up the beauty of like RESTful persistence, right? Because it's very natural in a REST context to think in terms of resources, entities as nouns with verbs like put, post, delete, and it all just maps like save this object to the database. That's what I want to do. But I don't want to let you update, the password or some other property that's not, or the created date that should be internal, right? So I came up with this Jackson annotation extension that implements RBAC at the field level. Like some of these
Yeah.
security for annotation frameworks apply at like the REST endpoint level, but they won't go into. You have Jackson views, right? You can create like the admin view of an entity. You can create a user view of an entity that you're mapping. I usually put my Jackson annotations right into my JPA domain model class, right? So I can serialize it. But then how do you get, expose more data for an admin versus a user? You could create views, or you can use like a fine grained kind of RBAC at the field level annotations that control that level of serialization. So I had a lot of fun experimenting with that. I might release it as like a little open source library. But the other quick point I want to make was the geez, what was I going to say about that? The cloud code. But no, it's fun to experiment with these technologies. Eclipse Link, it sounds like a great product. I never really had too much exposure to it, but yeah, I know it did come around before Hibernate, right? It kind of that whole uh, ecosystem of like the ORM frameworks, like we really owe a debt of gratitude to that. Like it made writing Java code so much easier, so much more interesting, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Like I said, it has a long history. I think it was what was the guy called again? Keith Davis, Keith something. Uh,
Gavin King, no.
oh, no, not Gavin King. He's the Hibernate guy, of course.
Oh,
The
okay.
guy from Eclipse Link, Keith something. I forgot his name. But it goes back to Top Link. Top Link goes back to
Oh yeah,
Smalltalk.
yeah, yeah.
I
Oh
think
yeah. I
it's
forgot.
from
Yeah.
that era. It's also a funny thing that when EGB entity beans were introduced, I think it was Keith Richards, by the way, who was like one of the early contributors to TopLink. Um, so what he said in his book about JPA is that the original version of EGB entity beans, which was that horrible thing that everybody hated, like even back then, it was very controversial when it was introduced. But then they didn't have an implementation of that yet. So initially they were running it on top of a top link. So this heavy, bad EGB thing that later on become like much later with JPA. Um, that was actually initially running on top of this much lighter alternative. It was
Oh,
just
that's so funny.
hidden behind the covers. It's quite
Right.
funny when you think of it.
so those
Right.
were the
Well,
ages of J2E where the architects tend to over-engineer everything just
yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
If it wasn't for that, we wouldn't have Spring, right? Or Java EE, right? Like,
That's
Yeah,
true.
exactly.
That's true.
yeah.
I mean, they kind of over-engineered, like especially like EGB one that oh, it has like this crazy
Oh
configuration where you
yeah.
have like serialized Java classes, and then that was your config objects, and but the prime idea of having a bean with interceptors, managed beans with a security interceptor, a transactional interceptor, that was quite novel at the time. The execution was
yeah,
horrible. But the idea,
the
the core idea is all right.
Yeah.
definitely the local interface, the remote interface, all these the home interface. It to implement all these have all these different interfaces for your stub, and it was quite a whole effort just to even set up an EJB. But the
Yeah,
interesting thing to me was that it seemed almost like an exercise in like what can we do with RMI at the enterprise level, right? That's I think what Sun Microsystem was doing with EJB at the time is like we came out with this remote method invocation protocol that's like a binary inter-process communication layer. What can we do with that? And the natural extension was like EJB, right? Like that was kind of the next step. You have Java beans, you have RMI, put them together, you got EJB. And
And of
Yeah,
course,
that's
don't forget all the hype around Corba at the time. So
Yes, good old Corba, JB
yeah,
Corba interop.
That was
so
exciting,
Still,
though.
still the
EGB
sad
kind
thing
of
is
still
that
talk
even
about like all the servers are still based on Corba.
Say it again.
yeah, that's. I just wanted to say that it's still a sad thing that even 20 years after these happened, still people think that EJB is that thing that was created 20 years ago. And when people hear about Jakarta EE, they say, "Oh, this is like EJB. I don't want to touch it anymore." But it's no longer that thing. Like Jakarta EE has evolved in the same way as Spring has evolved from XMLs to annotation, Spring
Yeah,
Boot. But the
absolutely.
legacy is still there because the story was created back then and still kept in memories of a lot of people, and people still even exaggerate that thing.
Yeah, we
Yeah,
Yeah,
always
but getting that Java is slow, that still is being said when Java is for a
yeah.
long one of the fastest languages around.
But
yeah,
we always talk about like how we see every like web framework, and we see like the JavaScript guys, the Ruby guys, and all these all these languages and all these frameworks saying, oh yeah, all the Java stuff is bloated, the J2EE stuff is bloated, the Spring stuff is bloated, but they do the same thing all over again. Like we see JSF manifest, we see all the things that we had to go through in the early days of J2EE just remanifest itself. We solved it, and we see our solutions in all these new frameworks and ideas.
Yeah,
yeah,
kind of
definitely.
indeed. And that's the funny thing. When you look at a modern microservice, it's actually a remote EGB. It's the same semantics, the same idea, the same everything.
Right,
And
right,
same abuse. If you have too many microservices, you get all the communication between them, and then you need to have the shared classes that they both use, and it's horrible, and there's so much communication over the line. That's exactly what we had with remote EGBs back then.
right.
Yeah,
I remembered what I wanted to say earlier about back to the JPA and Hibernate and Eclipse Link for a minute. I recently, with this code base I was talking about, trying to migrate it to microservices from a 200 table monolithic database app to a microservice architecture built on Java, right? With Spring Boot and Hibernate and JPA and all this stuff. But it occurred to me that the one-to-many annotation in JPA is the enemy number one of microservice architecture refactoring, because you end up with, they can't do bounded context. You have all your entities are referencing each other through these one-to-many relationships, and you have to have this a website entity, user entity. So website dot users relationship. Now these two tables are joined together forever, right? I can't decouple them and put them into different
Yes.
physical databases if I want, right? Like so it's really interesting that the paradigms of the past that served us so well are today, like, in a way, the hindrances, the encumbrances that we have to deal with, the burdens that we have to carry, right? And figure out how do we, like, a lot of it's still great and useful, but it's like domain models with interdependencies. It's like you can't separate those out and modularize your code
Yeah,
base.
exactly. We had the same thing. I was just working for a customer, and they have like a bookstore kind of application, and there's a native one which is a monolith. And there's a microservices version, and in the microservices version, exactly what you say, the entities can't reference each other. So what do? You make a lot of DTOs where you copy data around. You have like a customer. The customer has orders. The orders have references to products which have names and descriptions. But you want all that stuff on your order sheet. So if you have like the order surface, yeah, it really needs the customer entity. It needs the order
mhm.
entity, but they live in this other microservices. So then
Yes.
do a lot of JSON where you just basically copy everything, and the other service they kind of duplicate all the entities just with their own
Yeah,
local definitions that they somehow uh, create from the incoming JSON. And yeah, I don't know if
It's
it's
interesting.
yeah.
Go ahead, Kito.
I was gonna say, yeah, on projects like that, I often felt like I spent so much time just mapping from one object to another. Like we there was a framework we were using to help with it because it was so common because we'd basically get messages back of some variation of the same object and you'd have to translate it into your own database's version and it was just like just a lot of that work.
Yeah, I was asking like Claude, like scenario wise, like okay, help me understand. I have a beautiful relational database with referential integrity. I can't I can't have an order that references a product and then go and just delete the product, right? Because the order references it, and the database will say no, it's a foreign key constraint. You can't just delete the product. It'll it has incoming references. So it said, well, you change the order to have product ID as a string and then you'd have two different microservices, product service and order service. And if someone deleted the product that you had placed an order for, then the product service would send an event to the order
Mhm.
service and tell the order service, hey, this product no longer exists. Soft deletions and things like that are happening. So it's really interesting.
Eventual consistency.
Yeah, I have been working, and it's a bit of a not so well-known project from Jakarta and Microprofile. It's long-running actions,
Oh
LRA,
yes, yes.
and it's kind of neat. I've been doing some help with the guys over at JBoss, so they have a nice implementation of the LRA. I think it's also the only implementation really available. There's one by Oracle, I think. I don't really know that one, but it does kind of orchestrate those things. So
Nice.
you
LRA, I haven't heard about that. That's
Yeah,
awesome.
it's the
you
micro profile spec.
It
Uh,
kind of works like it's a big story, but condensed. It's like a distributed transaction. It doesn't hold lock, so there's no consistency guarantees. Um, but it kind of when something goes wrong, something is indeed deleted, it sends back those callbacks, and then the other service can compensate for that.
Nice.
So instead of it like a regular
Yeah, I
XA
kind of
transaction, where the database
never
does the
used this in real life, but I always thought like it's kind of fragile because you have to design the compensating action, which is written manually in the same way as
Yeah,
all the actions.
there's a
And you
lot.
need to test it because it doesn't happen often. And you need to make sure that if you need to reverse the actions, they are
Yeah,
reversed well and
yeah.
they don't
So
have any
there's a
bugs.
lot of theory behind it. It's indeed, it's not that trivial. So you have again, it's a big story. I can't. I could talk about this for like 2 hours, but there's various operations that you can like reverse or that you cannot reverse. Like if you send out a mail, you can't like retract the mail. It's already gone.
Right.
If you spend money, or if you reserve money, but you really take the money from an account and that money is already spent, you want to reverse that money, but it's already gone. In the same way, you can't put the money back because, like, your company has already spent the money. There's a lot of those unreversible actions. But in general, it indeed depends on your own business logic to do these reversing steps. And you kind of have to keep your own log. Every service that implements this LRA has to keep a log of things that happens. Then try, if there's a compensate request, to undo that action. Yeah, it can be fragile compared to a regular XA transaction, but it does give you a bit of a hold to do things.
Interesting. And how does that relate to like the saga pattern?
Um, I don't know which pattern is that.
I think
It's
it's the same
Saga's
thing.
microservice pattern. I'll share it in the chat here with you guys.
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
It's
Yeah, I
yeah.
think
long
Saga is a
series of long
pattern
running.
and LRA is a specification that
It's
describes
the
how to
same idea.
implement the
Yeah,
pattern.
yeah,
Yeah,
it's
I
the
think it's
Okay,
same.
okay.
Yeah.
Essentially, Saga. You can. There's a different versions of that. There's like the one with a global coordinator. There's one with events. There's the orchestrated version. The LRA from Microprofile is the one with a global coordinator.
Interesting. So LRA includes the coordinator component, right? It's a technology. It's not just a spec, right? Or there's an
Uh,
implementation.
yeah, yeah. There's an implementation from JBoss and Narayana.
Ah,
Um,
okay.
so I've been doing a few commits for that one.
Nice.
Yeah.
added a few features, helped the guys a bit. Of course, just a few things that they do all the work. Um, but so I have been a bit up to date with that, and it does
Nice.
work. It does
That's really
work.
cool.
Cool.
All right, let's move along. We got off on some interesting tangents, which I kind of like. So let's kind of blow through some of the news here. Obviously there's been a lot of layoffs. There's some links in our show notes. In addition to Oracle, Azul, which has a Java runtime, they laid off some people as well. Last year they merged with Pyara, so. Some people have been laid off there, but in bigger terms, there's apparently this year been 96,000 employees across Oracle, Amazon, Meta, Disney, Snap, and more. And of course, they're not all technical, but a lot of them are. Um, I don't know. I mean, I guess all we can really say is that that kind of sucks, and that we understand a lot of it has to do with like those three pillars I mentioned before. Dano, I know you have a lot of thoughts on this. Anything that you want to add before we move on? Okay, cool.
No, I'm good.
Okay. Um, all right. So I do want to mention another topic we had in the news, which is there's some stories about how some European countries are switching from U.S. technologies. Did anyone? I'm not sure who added these. Anyone want to mention the article?
I added them here because I
Okay.
noticed like we in Europe like for a long time envied the technology that's coming from USA, and we just used it, so it was good. Like Amazon, all the cloud stuff, database, Java comes from
Right.
USA, but always we had always this like at the back of our minds like we should do something more. Like, where are all the European companies that should compete with the
Right.
US companies to like just compete to be on the same level or come somehow at least close behind? But there was not much. There are a lot of companies. There are like corporates like SAP and I don't know. I know Dassault Systems, but it's not so well known. But I think it's like second biggest IT company in Europe, but very few people know
Right.
it. And there's
Right.
maybe Spotify's the biggest startup
Hmm.
based in Europe, but there's not much. Um, but in the face of all the things that were happening in the past few years in the world, not only the war in Ukraine, but then yeah, the current U.S. administration like made it much worse. It was lot of instability, and then also some acts like legal acts in US. I think most famous is the Cloud Act. I don't know much about it, but everybody
Oh, I
says
didn't know
like
about that one
it's
actually.
something like US government has the power to get the data from Europe,
Oh,
even
right.
if
Right.
it's stored on
I was like, I know this one.
European.
Yeah.
Ah,
So
interesting.
everybody in Europe is afraid of that, plus the tariffs and everything. So now even governments and politicians are talking about this, and this year suddenly it's happened that Germany, France, Switzerland, maybe some other countries announce within a month that they are going to switch from proprietary US-based solutions like Microsoft Office or like all the Microsoft stuff
Mm.
to, for example, LibreOffice or from Windows to Linux and things like that. They want to be also open source because that there's no point in turning into a proprietary vendor in European Union.
Right.
It's better
Right.
Yeah.
to have open
I
source
love it.
and then have multiple vendors to compete.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, but it's
And you
interesting to
contribute
see
back.
that.
I'm gonna go pack my luggage because that sounds awesome. Man, what a dream world for me. Look at that.
So it's
Everything
kind of
open
sounds
source.
nice, but there are still a lot of questions because it's like there's even a fund I think that is going to um, fund some creation of some like cloud solution which
Yeah, that
governments then
is
need to
the
use.
European
But then the
cloud.
question is like some people question what will happen after. Some companies will will be given money from this fund. They will create something, but where's the guarantee that the governments will actually use it later? So It's
Yeah,
not
we're
easy to see
tricky.
like if it's sustainable. Maybe they will build something, but then they will take the money and will go away because nobody will be using it. So this is all happening very fast, but just in the past few months, it started happening much faster than before, and now even real actions start to coming from decision makers. So that's kind of a news
Yeah, that's
Good.
really
months.
fascinating.
Yeah,
Uh,
what I'm sure AWS is also part of it too, right? Like AWS seems to be like almost nearly a monopoly as far as the cloud here. Obviously, Europe knows this, but is Europe AWS a lot, or is that true, or is there interest in like moving to a more European cloud?
Yeah, so there are a lot of businesses in Europe that use AWS. Also, Azure is pretty popular, but AWS is much more popular. But that's, I would say, among like mid-sized companies. If you are a big corporate, then you hesitate to go fully in AWS. Maybe half of the things which are less critical you can put there. But then the big corporations, I think they really think about whether to put something into AWS or put it into a local data center. Then there's this initiative of sovereign clouds, which means basically a cloud ran by a non-European company, but
Yeah,
with a guarantee that the data will be on data centers within European Union and will never leave
right.
European Union.
and encrypted and blah blah blah, and
Yeah. But
and
then
defended
there's this
against
Cloud Act.
government.
So
Yeah,
even though they will guarantee, there's still the fear that US government can ask to get the data. So there's the question if they really can 100% guarantee that the data will stay in Europe.
yeah,
Right.
But they at least try to stay in Europe business to create something that is really European, even though the company behind it, like AWS, is US based.
right.
But I think it's still like it's not like clear. Like
Yeah,
a lot of companies, especially governments, are thinking about going full European. Also to like support European businesses, European growth in IT.
hmm
So it goes hand in hand with long-term policy that nobody really followed. Just politicians thought about it and maybe we should do it. And
right.
now they're trying to really like it's like a lot of risks started to emerge in the past few months. And as they
Right.
started to realize that they have to do something.
Right.
Oh yeah, absolutely. We got to do something, but that's
Yeah, we all have
we're
to
not the
do
country to do it.
that, obviously.
Right.
All right. Well, that's yeah. That should we should keep an eye on. That'll be interesting to see. But
We kind
it
of
seems
would
logical to
like to
me.
be part of it because we're also fully European company. We're based in
Right.
Europe, in
Right.
Estonia. We're working with Eclipse Glassfish, which originally Glassfish is from US, but now it's in Eclipse Foundation, and Eclipse Foundation itself changed the headquarters from Canada to Belgium
Oh,
a
I didn't
couple
know
of
that.
years ago.
Okay.
So now even the Eclipse Foundation is European. So everything around OmniFish basically is European. But we also
Right.
have customers outside of Europe.
Right. Of
So
course. Of course. Okay. Cool. All right, so let's move on. So we just had a couple front end topics. I wanna move along quickly to get to picking some brains there. I thought I saw a child in the background, Andrew. Was that your son or daughter?
yeah, as my son, he's not asleep
Oh
yet.
my
So
God, yeah. He
Nice.
comes into the queue more often.
I saw him like peeping in like just for a second there. So to tell
Yeah.
him to hi. Um, all right, so Ian, I see that Angular Signals has been around for a while, hasn't it?
Yeah, Angular Signals has been around for a while. I just got around to really deep diving into that topic. So I thought
Okay.
to bring it up as a just a discussion point. We haven't really talked about signals in depth,
Hmm.
and I just had a good experience with it. Like I was working, obviously again with the help of LLMs, helping me ramp up on it quickly, giving me plenty of examples to look at, and it got me really thinking and intrigued by the code and the general approach the Angular team has taken with signals. One of the things I noticed right away, though, was like the centralized state management that I come to depend on with NGRX and with Redux was conspicuously absent. So I started running into these bugs right in the UI. trying to debug it, and you thought I looked like I'd fixed it in one place, and then the similar bug popped up in another place
Oh,
with the similar kind
interesting.
of data being state issues popping up in the UI. So it became clear, like, hey, Signals is great. Look, Angular got rid of Zone .js, they got rid of RxJS. They have their own like native, a lightweight framework now, or system for synchronously, not asynchronously, synchronously propagating state changes throughout the UI, and it
Okay.
serves the purpose. It serves a very, you can write computed signals, read-only signals, readable, writable signals. It has a lot of obvious use cases for Angular. But if you're trying to build non-trivial app UI like on top of Angular with state management, I found there was a gap. So I got into the next topic was the NGRX signal store. So I obviously jumped quickly. What's the Angular 20 story or Angular 21 story for NGRX with the Redux? And they've implemented a flavor of the Redux store and pattern for Angular signals called the
Hmm.
signal store. So you still get the benefit of centralized state management. You can integrate it with with reactive programming concepts like the observable pipelines, subscriptions. You can still have used like the Redux concepts like actions and selectors and reducers. Reducers have kind of been, a lot of it's been compressed, right? So it's been quite an interesting learning curve to try to ramp up on Angular 20 signals and NGRX. So I just wanted to share a couple of, well, just in case anyone else is working on this stuff, but if not, we all work on different stacks, so it's perfectly fine. But yeah, I did notice like one thing that was lost as well with the NGRX signal store is the actions. Like every action is the same now: patch store, patch store, patch store. So or patch state, whatever they call it, but update store basically. You don't have that fine grained like select row, toggle flag, all this kind of like detailed action stuff, call API success or API failure. So it's
Hmm.
really interesting how I'm trying to figure out how did the front end, the Angular community really sign off on this, like in a way, because they've changed a lot. Like the landscape has changed a lot, but state management problems haven't changed. And that became immediately apparent when I, was working on this app, that without good centralized state management, you're basically in the dark when you're trying to debug UI issues, and you can spend a
Interesting.
lot of time. So, but yeah, NGRX Signal Store is a really nice contribution from that team. So
Do you know
anyway,
if the Angular signals are much different than the JavaScript proposal for signals?
I
It's,
haven't I haven't tracked the JavaScript proposal for Signals. Unfortunately, I'm not sure about that.
it looks
Um,
like it's page one. And what I don't know, because I think Lit had its added support for signals as well. So I'm curious about that. It's something to look into. Is this basically just is their signal implementation just an earlier draft or based on an earlier draft or is it do more than the pure JS version? So
That's a good question. You
yeah, it
got me
looks
intrigued now.
yeah.
New rabbit hole to look at.
Yes, indeed. So very cool. It's interesting though with state management. I don't feel like I always need it. But I think it is helpful for larger applications.
Well, it's just the goal of good state management and centralized state management is the ability to reason about problems in your UI, about your application, right? And
Hmm.
if you can't reason about your application, you're really just it's whack-a-mole. If there's a problem that appears in one part of the UI, and like you're dealing with the same kind of data and different screens, different representations of the same data, but how come in one place the value is 5 and the other place it's 3? What happened there? Like the count is off, or there's some computation. That's the problem. Too much derived state. It's hard to reason about. Where did this value come from, right? How did this
Right.
label get this? So, but with centralized state, you can just literally look at there's a nice plugin for a Chrome extension, Redux DevTools, that just shows you the store, like all the states that you have in your application. You can go and look at it. It's JSON, or that's a nice UI that renders it as a tree, and you can just see what is the current value of this property in this store. And
Right. Right.
there it
So
is,
yeah.
centralized. It's
Yep.
like MVC, the way MVC was always supposed to work, like the state management is a big part of that. Like, but
Yeah, I can do that. Definitely. All right, so let's move on. So I'd like to move on to chatting with you guys. I think so. We've so for those who don't aren't looking at the show notes like me, so we've got a few server-side Java issues and AIML that we mentioned. Why don't we, Ondro and Aryan, I know you have a few topics here for server-side Java. Why don't we pick any of them that you think are particularly interesting? Um,
Okay, yeah, we have a few that we might want to talk about. So, one of the things on the agenda for a long time is the microprofile and Jakarta EE groups joining together. So there was a big impulse to do that. There's a history there. My microprofile originally started when Java EE, as it was called back then, was stalling. Like Oracle didn't put that much effort into it. The other vendors started something themselves. Um, Working basically with the draft specs that were originally created for EE9 at the time, which didn't came to be. Um, then eventually Oracle donated Jakarta EE to the Eclipse Foundation. Microprofile started at the Eclipse Foundation. Then they adopted the same spec processes. Eventually, we had the situation that the same people from the same companies were working on both Microprofile and EE, and the same products were implementing both spec sets as well. So, for instance, WildFly, Quarkus, OpenLibty, they all implemented both EE and MP. So yeah, why do you have separate specs or separate working groups still on the table? That it doesn't make much sense. There's a lot of trouble with coordinating these things at conferences. I think Kito was there when we were in Atlanta. We had the Jakarta booth and we had the microprofile booth, and they were staffed by the same people running
yeah,
around from one
yeah.
booth to the other. And like I was at the Jakarta booth for a while, Emily was at the micro profile, then we switched, and Emily was on micro profile, I was at or at EE and I was at MP, and we thought, okay, that doesn't make sense. Why do we brand ourselves as two different groups and two different brands? Well, we are the same thing actually, and it also dilutes what we offer to the customers.
Also, they're both under the Eclipse Foundation, right? So it's like the same companies, and
Yes.
then the specifications are all in the same organization. So
Yeah, exactly. They follow the same specification process. They have to align with each other because they are officially, microprofile is officially based on Jakarta EE. That's why we had the core profile at some point. So there's all these kinds of issues. So we're trying to join it together. But then maybe a bit the layoff story comes into to place again because a lot of people have been laid off recently, and I think that kind of reduced the speed in which we were doing things. So
yeah,
it's all slowed down quite a bit. So that's fortunately. I hope we can still get it going again.
yeah, that's a good question because I haven't seen any activity on it in a couple months, at
Yeah.
least.
And it's quite troublesome because we have some wonderful specifications coming up, like Tavio's NoSQL, for instance, and you really
Hmm.
want to use microprofile or config, EE MP config to do the configuration for that, not invent a new deployment descriptor like web.xml or persistence.xml, just use persist configuration from the get-go,
Right.
but it's in my microprofile, and that's just very annoying.
Yeah,
And
and
with,
there was some talk about combining the Jakarta config and microprofile config stuff. I'm not really sure what happened with
I'm
that.
also not really sure, and I'm there with the meetings every week, and I'm still not sure. It, yeah, we
Yeah,
had to
this is
plan.
like one of those unfortunate stories in Jakarta
Yeah,
EE when something is almost ready to be finished, but then somebody steps in and says like, we need to redo it from scratch, and then nothing
Mm,
happens.
Yeah, it's a bit like too many opinions, too many people. There's a lot of yeah, how you say that, emotion maybe around the namespace. Like people
Yes.
have been, of course, carrying the micro profile brand name into their hearts for a long time. That it um, so to give up the namespace to rename the package, that is of course not that easy. And there's the short-term cost of all the customers who may need to rename their packages and their code. Of course, in the long term, if you have a single framework with a lot of different packages, that's also not nice. That feels very incoherent. So
Hmm.
there's a bit of the balance between like the emotions for all people, of course, for all humans. We hate to give up the names we like and love. And there's the future, there's the long term, where if you have like this hotspots melting thing of 100 different package names, that's also not good. So
Well, and the other thing is that, back, if people have a lot of trauma or PTSD based on the Jakarta, the Java EE to Jakarta EE naming change, which caused a lot of
yeah,
pain, right?
that
But
is your pain. Yeah,
What
you
was that
know,
really necessary, guys? What are they even doing with Java EE now?
it,
Java X dot
that was an
whatever.
Oracle thing. That's a trademark thing.
But are they
yeah,
reserving the right to use Java X for something else?
yeah. That's a JCP thing, and Oracle JCP thing. Like if you want to have a Java X namespace, you need to evolve it under the JCP. And the Eclipse Foundation had their own specification process, which was not compatible with that.
But when
But
when Oracle donated Java EE to Jakarta to the what became Jakarta, right? What was wrong with continuing to evolve Java EE under JCP with the Java X package
the
name?
same thing as the same thing was the reason for renaming Java EE to Jakarta EE. Couldn't be named Java EE because
But
you
was it
had
just to
Java.
take it away from Oracle's control, or did they just say we're not interested
It's
in
the
supporting this?
trademark. They own the trademark Java, and Java
Right.
X is just too close to the trademark, so they
Well,
also
and the
wouldn't allow us
JCP
using it.
is run by Oracle, right? So
Yeah, basically, yeah.
Yeah,
So
to be more
yes.
independent,
not
the idea,
exactly, but they have a strong
yeah,
relationship together, and Oracle basically allows JCP to use the Java X prefix, but they don't allow Eclipse Foundation to use it.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
yeah. Then it had to be evolved under the JCP. The JCP was too tightly coupled to Oracle. There were all kinds of concerns from the other vendors. I haven't been with some of the discussions. I've been with a lot, but not with all of them. So I don't know the exact details. But when I came in, it was already decided that keeping the JCP process was not a option that was still on the table. So it had to move to an Eclipse specification process. And for that to happen, they had to let go of the namespace.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a history, right?
No, and the amount
Yeah.
of expense to the industry that was, I cannot even
No, but it came from two sides. Like the customers, the users, the end users, they had to do a lot of renaming and
yep.
recompiling and what have you. But from the Eclipse Foundation and the contributors like us, we also had to do a ton of work. I had a very nice article about this on Java Magazine at Oracle's website, but unfortunately they deleted all the Java Magazine articles.
What?
That was an entire history and a lot of,
Oh my God. I
Damn,
did not
that's
realize
terrible.
that.
and they're all gone. There's some
When did
Japanese
that happen?
2 years ago, something like that.
I did not even know that. That's horrible. That's
It was, they sometimes still show up in the Google results, and then you click on it, and then it's a 404, it's gone. And
yeah. I wrote a
it's,
couple articles for that thing. Yeah.
I had like 6 articles on the website, and you can still
Ah,
find them via. the Wayback Machine.
Yes, the wonderful Wayback Machine. What would we do
And
without
they
that?
forgot to, I hope that some Oracle manager doesn't hear it, but they forgot to delete some that were on the subdomain with the JP infix, but like Japanese translations of the articles, and they are still on.
Oh, okay, okay.
Forgot to delete them, I think. But anyway, the point was that I wrote an article about the entire process. That it took us like 4 years or so to do the transition, which is crazy long time. And we had to vet source code. We had to make certification and verification builds. It's crazy how much time went into it. We had to redo all the specification documents so they could be based on the text, but we did it at the source of many specification documents. It had to be put in ASCII doc. The TCK had to be transferred and migrated to other technologies. All the jobs needed to be set up. It was a crazy
Yeah.
amount of work altogether.
Well, and all that happened, right? While Spring was just happily adding more features.
Exactly.
And so,
Exactly.
Yeah,
And that
uh,
was a
and
big
the
problem.
i- interesting fact was that changing Java X to Jakarta prefix made a lot of Spring users realize that there's Java EE underneath because they they got impacted too.
Yeah, so
And
there's
that
maybe a good side to it in a way. It's just make people realize, hey, we are using Jakarta.
yeah, I'm always reminding people of that too. Yeah. So, all right. Well, that's yeah. So, I think the bottom line here is that we would like to see the whole MP and EE alignment actually happen. So if anyone's listening,
Yeah.
and can help push that process forward. I know everything is kind of discombobulated a bit, but I think it would help the community a lot. Um,
Yeah, I think so too. We would be like one much more complete and powerful framework instead of pretending we're two separate things and people asking, do you have support for failover? Do you have support for um, open API? And then we say, no, we officially
right.
don't have it, but we have it in my microprofile, and microprofile is kind of an extension. And that's it's a very complicated story to tell customers. And they are already confused by the entire spec and implementation defined that we talk, okay, we have the API, Jakarta EE, but you need like a server, a runtime, like JBoss or Glassfish to run it. And that's already a bit confusing. And then we also have to tell the story. Well, that's not the entire story, but there's microprofile. So a bunch of specs are actually not in EE, but in MP. And that, yeah, it's sometimes a bit too much for customers to get. So joining them would be a much clearer story for everybody.
Yeah, and I think it not only helps OmniFish, but it helps everyone else in the ecosystem. So,
Yeah.
um, all right. You also said that you've got stuff for Glassfish 9 and EE12.
Yeah, so we're now just started with the first builds of Glassfish 9. Like a milestone was released a month ago. We're about to release milestone 2. So Jakarta E12 has been in progress for quite some time. Um, Components are getting ready. CDI is quite far. JPA is also quite far. Jakarta Persistence. Security has just started. It kind of connects to the MP and EE story. That security is finally implementing the JWT authentication mechanism. So for a long time, we did not do that because it was already in my microprofile, and we were kind of waiting for them to join. But since that still hasn't happened, we're now just implementing it in Jakarta Security anyway. Uh, we do keep it compatible with microprofile, so implementation should
yeah,
be.
that's also like one example where it even makes our work doing the specifications complicated when microprofile and Jakarta are separate. Because here, basically, microprofile duet specification, which specifies just using a GUI to secure REST endpoints. would
Hey,
naturally fit
Ondro, can
Jakarta
you speak up a little
security.
bit? I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
there we go. All right, cool.
yeah. So naturally, basically, microprofile also addresses part of security with JSON Web Tokens, and Jakarta Security addresses things like OAuth and basic authentication. And also, Jewett JSON Web Tokens would fit Jakarta Security, but they're already microprofiles, so we don't want to repeat the same thing or re-specify the same thing again. But it would be at least good to like specify how to make how to work with them together. So when you have Jakarta Security and microprofile Jewett, and currently, for example, you cannot combine in a standard way microprofile authentication with other authentication mechanisms, which perfect use case is when you have, for example, web pages in an application, but you also have a REST endpoint. And for REST endpoints, you want to use JSON Web Tokens, and for human-centric pages, you want to use, I don't know, OpenID Connect to authenticate using Google or something like that. But currently, it is not possible because there you don't have a mechanism how to or delegate to micro-profile authentication from Jakarta Security. We have that in Glassfish 8. We added that because it's just one annotation, but it has to be in Glassfish API because there's nothing in microprofile, nothing in Jakarta that it could use. So
Yeah.
we added one annotation in Glassfish and made it happen. Uh, because in Glassfish, the microprofile implementation of the microprofile JSON Web Token is also uh, Jakarta Security authentication mechanism. So it naturally fits, but is an implementation detail only happening in Glassfish, maybe some other implementations, but it doesn't have to happen everywhere.
Yeah, exactly.
Um,
It's in a small right too, by the way, which is one of the biggest implementations. But Open Liberty, for instance, and Tommy E, I think they don't do it that way.
so on the specification level, there's no way to do it in platform or portable way. And it's hard to make specify it in that way because how do you put something that should integrate two specifications together? You either put it in one or the other, or somewhere in between. But since they
Yeah.
have nothing in common, there's no way to put it
So
somewhere.
just kind of a naive question here. Like, what happened with the OSGI story? That was kind of like the building blocks of these kind of interoperable standards and technology implementations, right? At the container level or the application server level. Is that still an important layer in Glassfish and microprofile and Jakarta EE? Or
Well, in
Yes and
standards
no.
In Jakarta, EE microprofile it doesn't take any role. It's irrelevant. So, like there are
okay,
completely different things.
okay, yeah,
It's just kind of similar is like Jakarta ERs, which are like bundles of applications. They kind of match the model of OSGI bundles, but it's not the same thing. But in Glassfish was and is still the server is still built on OSGI modules.
okay,
Uh,
okay,
so Glassfish is even in theory able to reload modules without restarting the whole server.
right,
If
right,
you
right,
want to do that, there's probably no easy way to do it, but it's possible. What Glassfish does, it loads the modules only when it needs them. So, for example, if the applications don't need REST, it wouldn't load the REST module, the Jersey module. Um, so it tries to load the modules lazily. That's how it uses OSGI basically. And then also we can build different distributions. There's full profile, which has all the functionality, and then web profile Glassfish, which is just a subset, and it just doesn't have few of the modules, and they are not loaded.
right. So
But then there
help me
is
understand.
also,
Sorry,
yeah,
go ahead.
just to finish, there is also a distribution which is still called embedded, but is no longer only for embedding Glassfish. You can run it on command line separately, run applications. And that one is just a jar, it's a shaded jar with all the classes. It's just
Right.
one jar. And that one doesn't use OSGI. So that
Okay.
then it's everything on the flat class path without OSGI.
And are there like Docker image distributions of Glassfish that are tailored for different kind of deployment scenarios, or like something containerized version of Glassfish?
Yeah, we distribute also Docker images, one for the server and one for the embedded Glassfish, which I like to call runnable Glassfish because that's probably more the important and interesting
Yeah,
use
you
case
have to do
than
something
embedding.
about the name embedded, perhaps, because people do think it's a different thing than what it really has become.
When you mean, well,
So
what do you guys mean by embedded? Is it like the inversion of the web container or the runtime somehow, like
yeah,
the application?
basically you can do what
Basically, the
Spring Boot
entire
does.
server, the entire platform, and originally embedded meant that you could start it up from another Java application. So from within a
Okay.
Java SE application, your main, or somewhere deep down the Java FX or Swing application, you could start up, install Glassfish, uh, running fully in memory, starting it from the Java SE code.
Basically, it's just a library that you add on ClassPath,
Right,
and
right.
then you can
Like
stack the
the way
server.
Tomcat is bundled with Spring Boot kind of thing.
Yes, exactly,
It's a
exactly.
bit
And it
like
Nice.
used to be used mainly for testing, where you just from Surefire, from Maven, you started Glassfish in the same JVM, ran tests
Right.
against them, and hit and stopped. But some people also embedded it. I saw use cases where there was a Swing application, as Arjan said, and they
Nice.
started a
yeah,
server and served it there. Or there's one guy I talked to. He uh, that has like two variants of his application. One is distributed one where it runs on the server and serves a lot of different clients, but it can also be started on one computer and then it runs on embedded Glassfish. So it's the same application, it's just different deployments. One is on the
Right.
server and serves people through the browser. The other one is just running on the computer. The server and client runs on the same computer and then communicate through, I think, remote EJBs or something. Doesn't matter too
Okay.
much. So
Interesting.
so it gives additional flexibility, and this is the point with Jakarta EE. A lot of people still connect Jakarta EE with application servers,
Right.
but Jakarta EE doesn't say anywhere that it has to be an application server that implements
Right.
the API. It
Is there
just
a like
traditionally used to be like that.
yeah, of course, of course. I mean, that's a key point. If you can do if you can deploy applications with Glassfish that without dropping a WAR file into directory, and you can do interesting different kind of deployment models with it, then that opens up a lot of possibilities, right? Like versus the container runtime, the application server architecture where it runs your code. Now you're running the container inside your code, right? Or
yeah,
wrapping it.
exactly. Exactly. So
Yeah,
that's
you
what
can
you
do that,
do
but
with Glassfish embedded too. You can run it from the command line and then essentially run a var file. So that's one step from an Uber jar, which is like combining the jar with the var. But with Glassfish embedded, you can start a var from the command line, and sometimes that's more flexible. So when you have
Nice.
like a Docker image, you put like the runtime in one layer and then the var on the
Of
last layer.
course.
So then you only have to do small deployments when the var is changing your own code and not the
Interesting.
runtime.
And so another question for you guys. So what is the AI story for Glassfish? Can you build agentic AI workflows on top of
Hey,
Glassfish? Are there,
hey, Ian, but
is there
before we get into that, I just
sorry.
want to, no, no, this is great actually, because this is where we need to be, for, to make sure we don't last till like another hour. So this is where I want to be, but I do want, Ondro and Aryan to tell us, just to take a step back and explain sort of like what Glassfish is, um, and like where it came from and like why you're involved with it, and just give us just a little bit of background. Not
Absolutely.
just a little bit.
Okay, yeah, so a little bit of background. I had an entire presentation about this on the
I'm
Jakarta
sure you do.
last so that was a big story. So it's one of the oldest things around in a way. It came from originally the Kiva application server was like in 1996 already, so just after Java itself started. Long story, it went to Netscape. Sun had an alliance with Netscape, then it became at some point the Sun application server, the Sun One application server, the Sun Java system, and all those different names. You had like a different name for every version. eventually that became GlassFish. So GlassFish was developed as a combination of the reference implementation that Sun had and their own open source implementation. They kind of combined them. Um, then GlassFish itself became the reference implementation, but also suitable for production. Then at some point they were acquired by Oracle. Oracle had already acquired BIA with WebLogic, so GlassFish was a bit put aside. At some point they did not offer any commercial support for GlassFish anymore. That's when Piara picked up GlassFish and started to enhance it and offer the support that Oracle did not offer anymore. Um, a few years later, Piara did kind of went into a different the direction than what some of the core engineers at Piara had in mind. So a few of us, like David Ondro and myself and a few other people, they left Piara. They started to look at the original GlassFish again, doing the same kind of enhancement, fixing bugs, making everything much more stable, focusing much more on the technical finesse, the technical details, making everything really solid. And that's basically, in short, where we are today. So GlassFish is like the original version of GlassFish. Obviously, it moved to the Eclipse Foundation. Uh, Eclipse is the official owner of it. They take care of all the copyrights, the IP, the protections of the source code, so that none of the committers or the vendors can move a GlassFish in a direction that's not compatible with the scope of the project. So you have like extra protections with the foundation behind it. But OmniFish is the main committer to the project. We do a lot of enhancements. We move the project forward. We do a lot of deep refactoring. And of course, we provide the support that companies may need.
Okay, so that
So
helps.
it's
Hopefully
like
good.
very
I
much
wanted,
condensed. There's a lot more
Yes.
to say.
Yes.
I wanted to say some other interesting stuff about Glassfish. When I checked the history or statistics of Glassfish, it used to be somewhere in 2005. It used to be the second most popular Java server after Tomcat. It was like 60% people use Tomcat, 30% use Glassfish, and then 10% was everything else. And the reason for that was probably because it was the reference implementation of first J2EE and Java EE. It was developed by Sun Microsystems, which was the Java company. So a lot of people use it by default. And still, I meet even this year or last year at the conference, I met people who just came to our booth and said, "Hey, Glassfish, that's what I learned Java
Yeah.
with because they just downloaded Java EE SDK with NetBeans, with Glassfish, everything in there.
Oh
A lot of
yeah.
people remember it from
Then
the
you
past.
automatically get Glassfish indeed. So we're not the reference implementation anymore. This was like one of the changes in the Eclipse specification project compared to the JCP. The JCP had the concept of a reference implementation, which has its own specific set of rules to go with it, legal rules that you could not create a product based on the reference implementation. In the Eclipse Foundation specification process, we only have compatible implementations, and Glassfish is like one of the compatible
Yeah,
implementations.
but it's still the major one because it's still the first one to be used as a compatible
Yeah,
implementation.
so
I always say, like, if there was no Glassfish, Jakarta EE would be delayed by 6 or 12 months every
yeah,
release
maybe
because
even more.
there's
Like the
no other implementations. There's Payara, which is always very close to Glassfish, but they often benefit from the similarity to Glassfish, so they can copy a lot of things and use the same
yeah,
similar components. So yeah, if we do the job with Glassfish and make it implement everything, it's easy job for them to copy it from us and
yeah,
release a new version. But
because
it
the
doesn't work so
are
well
still
the other way
overlap.
around because if Glassfish wasn't there, it would make it would Payara would have had much harder time to implement everything. So if
Yeah,
GlassFish wasn't there, Jakarta EE itself would be delayed at least a couple of months every release.
Okay.
yeah, and we see that like the other vendors which we do work closely together with, like IBM and Red Hat, although Red Hat has become IBM since a few months, I think, that the teams really joined. But they are still working on their EE11 implementations. And Jakarta EE11 was released in mid 2005, so we're now almost a year later. And they still haven't released their EE11 version. So if it were not, if there was no Glassfish, then it would have been delayed by at least a year, I think.
Right. Right. Wow. Okay.
Yeah, and we started with the EE12 builds, and I think none of the other vendors have started with EE12 builds.
Yeah. Yeah. Because it's not out yet. So, so I think it's
Yeah,
pretty. So Ian, let's go back to your question. Now we set the stage. You're muted. Ian, you're muted.
Oh, thanks. Good catch. Thanks, Kito. Yeah, before we jump back into my questions, I just wanted to say I have fond memories of working with NetBeans and Glassfish together. It was just like hand in glove. It just worked so well together. It was so nice to start up the app server with the NetBeans IDE, and that was like one of the high points of I think enterprise Java tooling and development experience. So that really I enjoyed that a lot. And as I mentioned before our show started, I did do some product development for JSF. I built a few plugins for Dreamweaver years ago. And at one point I was shipping Glassfish with my plugins. I was trying to integrate it as a rendering engine for JSF behind Dreamweaver.
Yeah.
And it was, it was a promising idea. Unfortunately, like I kind of discontinued the product around that time, shortly after, because Adobe was basically, um, uh, just removing a lot of functionality in Dreamweaver at the time. They were scaling it back. The original Macromedia interface was a lot more powerful and developer oriented, and they're trying to slim it down to more of a designer friendlier tool. But no, I really enjoyed working with Glassfish, and this is a really nice product, actually, a beautiful piece of technology. And especially you can see like Sun Microsystems fingerprints are all over that. Like just the quality of the implementation is just so good. So yeah, I wanted to like that's the past, right? That's our, the history of Glassfish, the background. This is great, and it's still alive. It's a mature technology today. So one of the things, the first questions that came to my mind is, so I'm not that familiar with microprofile. I can see obviously the mission statement is microservices architecture for enterprise Java. How do you do microservices with Glassfish, guys?
Yeah, so for that, that's where the Glassfish embedded comes in. That's why we made it runnable on command line, because normally with Glassfish, traditionally you start the server, you have the server, and you could run microservices on the server, but automatically you have the administration console and a lot of things that you don't need for microservices. While the embedded Glassfish by default, even before it was just embeddable and not runnable from command line, it had only what was essential, basically the implementations of the APIs and some extra stuff like monitoring was there, but it wasn't even functional, so we fixed it and made it runnable. And now you can just create a microservice as a WAR application, run it from command line, or even like embed it into something else. But for microservices, you generally want to just start it from command line.
That's so
With
interesting. So it's like the
Glassfish, yeah.
Java jar command with the war file extension, right?
Yeah,
yes,
And it
and it
starts up with
supports a
Glassfish.
lot. It supports properties file for configuration, so you no longer need to like edit DOM in XML file. You
Good.
can
Yeah, yeah.
run admin commands. You still like through this properties file, you can run admin commands if the properties are not enough. It's possible to
Nice.
define
And
some
so,
commands
what would
there.
you guys say? Uh, what would you two say about like what are the most popular features of Glassfish? Like the developer community using the tool. What do people really like the most about Glassfish?
I think that one of the things is that we're very much focused on Jakarta EE. So in Glassfish, really we don't emphasize a lot of proprietary APIs. We don't try to get people into using our realms, for example, which still exist, but we don't put emphasis on it. Like everything in Glassfish is pure Jakarta EE, and we stimulate people to use that. At the same time, Glassfish as a product has focused a lot on stability, a lot on correctness, a lot on the performance. So the amount of features, all the bells and the whistles, things that are tried and then later whistle out in the marketplace, we haven't focused so much on that. But most of the efforts are into making it like a very reliable, very stable
Yes.
runtime to run your workloads on.
Nice. So Jakarta EE standard compliance and stability. Great.
Yeah,
And
that's
how,
focus on
how
it.
That
how about cloud deployment, cloud migration? Like what is the story there for teams using Glassfish who want to deploy it into the cloud? Is there a well-known path to go from like local environment to AWS, for example?
yeah, so traditionally, like what Arjen was talking about is what long-time users basically expect from Glassfish. Those are the ones that developed their projects a couple of years ago, even 10, 20 years ago, that they still want to keep it running, but not on old Glassfish, but they want to run it on new thing with security fixes, with newer Java version. And the latest Glassfish runs on the latest Java. We always test it with newer Java. So with Java 26, we still have some hiccups related to EJBs, remote EJBs. Most of the functionality work, but some tests still fail on Java 26. But we will fix it very soon. Um, so these are the most important features for all those legacy users. They want to
Right.
run their old apps, maybe bit updated during the time, but they want to have the new runtime, new Java underneath because it's
Yeah. Yeah.
very important for security with all those security fixes. And
Absolutely. And yeah.
then
So is
for
there
cloud
a like
deployment,
go ahead, go ahead.
yeah. And then for like new stuff, cloud deployments, microservices, uh, that's where the embedded glassfish comes in. And a lot of people, when they are thinking about this, they ask us. They know some other alternatives in from other vendors, like there's Payara Micro from Payara. There's now Quarkus, which is like a competition to WildFly now. But also WildFly has its WildFly Galeon or some other things that make allow you to make smaller distributions to run microservices. So this is one of the top questions when people come back to Glassfish or explore Glassfish and they ask us like, do you have any microservice or like simple
Yeah, yeah.
distribution? And Glassfish embedded is the answer there.
Okay.
Uh,
It's
and
the only
then
thing at this point.
what matters with embedded Glassfish, for example, compared to Pyre Micro, it doesn't have so many features as Pyre because Pyre added a lot of their own features on top of Glassfish, but it starts 2 or 3 times faster
Right,
and
right, right.
it eats less memory, less resources. So in
So
cloud deployments, when you have small services, it really matters.
right. No, I'm
Yeah.
just wondering, like, is there some kind of sorry, Andre, Arjun, you wanted to jump in?
Yeah, so one thing to add to that. So we also started a parallel effort. It's Piranha. So Piranha is
That was my
like,
question. Thank you.
yeah, so that's a bit like Glassfish reimagined. It's all the Glassfish components like Jersey
Nice.
Phillips Link, JSF Mahara, even if you would like to use that. But then, like from a completely from scratch runtime. So it's a very minimal implementation. It kind of just glues the components together, which makes it incredible lightweight. So much lighter weight than Glassfish, and it's become quite lightweight already with embedded. But this is even a step beyond that.
I love the name Piranha. It's great. It's great
Yeah,
player.
it's the idea. It came from Manfred Riem, so he's a long time JSF spec lead as well. Worked a long time for Oracle, currently at Microsoft, but also helping us at OmniFish. And he did a lot of the code for Piranha. We contributed too. And the idea is that it, like a piranha fish, that's one of the myths that goes around. You throw a cow in the river and it strips the cow to the bone.
It's like
Um,
a glassfish on steroids kind of thing, right?
yeah, and in the steroids, almost in the reversed way, that it eats away everything which you don't need.
Okay, interesting.
But
No, cloud native.
it's still a work in progress. So we still don't recommend it for production use. It's a thing that's more aimed at the future, but we are
Right.
working on it.
No, that sounds great. I mean, cloud native is a really great direction to be moving. Is there any plan to offer a kind of infrastructure as a service like an OpenShift, Red Hat OpenShift, which is all centered around the JBoss and a runtime, and they offer like the Kubernetes managed Kubernetes environment on top of with including the JBoss and the all that infrastructure management, or either it's on-prem or in cloud deployment. How are you guys positioning OmniFish in terms of infrastructure as a service? Is that in your on your roadmap at all?
Uh, yeah, this is more like in our ideas level because we know that it's much bigger step than it sounds.
Yeah, yeah,
We saw how Pyra approached it. They built their Pyra clouds, and we know that they didn't get so many customers. And even before they launched the service, there were long discussions how they will support it, because then suddenly you have to support something 24/7, not just be on
yeah, yeah,
call 24/7, but you have to detect these issues, fix them, because otherwise people will complain and lose
yeah,
money. Uh, so that's a different story. We were more like thinking about creating some recipes for deploying Glassfish on Amazon and Glassfish clusters and things like that, maybe with our support. They Most of these cloud providers have some kind of marketplace where you can just click something, install it, and then you pay some margin to the creator of the templates on top of what you pay to Amazon. So that was what we were thinking
right.
to prepare and make available on these marketplaces. Another option
Yeah.
is to build something on our own, kind of, but to use something that already exists. And I personally really like Virtuoso platform as a service, which used to be
Hmm.
called Jelastic. It
Oh
was
yeah.
very,
Okay. I was gonna
yeah,
say I don't know about that one, but yes, I remember J Elastic. So okay.
yeah. So it was a startup called Jelastic, founded by a guy, Ruslan Sinitsky from Ukraine. And then it was sold to a company in Switzerland, which is called Virtuoso. So that was renamed. And Virtuoso company has a lot of other cloud things like infrastructure as a service. So that's why it's called PaaS. Virtuoso PaaS is the thing that used to be called Joystick. And there you have a nice user interface, much nicer than Amazon, any cloud I saw, where you can very easily set up a cluster, make it scalable according to the loads. And everything is very easy, very simple, and even billing is very nice. You every day you see how much you spend with each service anytime. Well, with Amazon, I think in the beginning they didn't have a clue. Now they have some kind of calculator, but it's not exactly what you pay in the end. Um, and the thing is, Virtuoso is licensed, so they basically sell the software that you install into a data center. So then you have a lot of data centers that license this and offer this thing. And it's also possible to install it on Amazon, for example, and then run it yourself. And you pay just license fee to Virtuoso. And that was what we were thinking, to provide these and tune it highly for Glassfish, to have always the latest version, or even a couple of versions of Glassfish, everything nicely integrated, so you don't have to really figure out how to use Glassfish there
Yeah.
very well.
That makes sense.
So
Yeah.
that was are the ideas, but it's still like we still need to probably hire more people to get this done.
Yeah.
And for that, we
Yeah.
need to grow a little
So
bit, little bigger.
Yeah. Speaking of staffing up, have you guys? What's your AI story at OmniFish? Do you guys use AI to maintain Glassfish? Are you triaging issues with AI? Are you adding features to Glassfish with AI? How do you guys maintain Glassfish with? Do you use any AI tools for that, or
So
it's still manual?
partially, like especially as a good example, we recently by using AI, cloud code, migrated a lot of the old JSF tests to a new version. So the story is that originally the TCK tests for JSF were written via something called Java test. It's a really ancient framework, long before unit existed. It's kind of horrible to work with. Very hard, very. Okay, I don't want to go into too many details, but it's hard. We've been working on the entire platform, all the specs to migrate a lot of tests. Took us about a year and a half, and we're still not entirely there. We did that with an open rewrite script, with a lot of manual work. Okay, I won't go into too many details because it's a very long story. But recently, Bauke has used Cloud Code for that with a very smart setup. He's kind of a magician with that. I wouldn't know exactly how he did it. But some 3,000 plus tests have been converted using Cloud Code in about a week. And from what I can see, because I did the review, they look quite a bit better than what we did with the other projects like Jakarta Persistence and EGB, which we did manually for about a year. So this is really quite promising for these kinds of conversions.
That's great. So I mean, yeah, using it to convert tests, TCKs, that makes sense. Test code, right? But have you guys trusted AI yet with your production code, or are you still hands off at that point?
So personally, it's for me not automated like we did with the test conversion. So that was like really a cloud code was in command. It like churned on the test for like 10 hours per batch. So we did it in four batches, so like 40, 50 hours in total. But with the production code, with the Glassfish code, at least myself, it's more like I'm asking help to do the AI. So it's a bit like interacting. I copy paste bits and pieces into
Yeah.
just the chat window. Ask for some recommendations. Did I forget anything? Does this look sound to you? It's more
Right.
like this interactive thing, not whole code level.
Right. That's interesting. And it makes sense too, because Glassfish is a compatible implementation, as you put it, right? And it has to maintain compatibility with the spec, and you can't deviate too much from that. So, but what room is there for innovation in like the Jakarta EE ecosystem, right? I mean, if everything is going through the specification process and the committee, like JCP equivalent, right? Then who comes up with the cool new features, right? They keep pace with the other runtimes out there and the other innovative companies.
Yeah, so it basically comes from individual contributors, individual committers, individual members who essentially just propose things. Everybody can propose something. If you get some support, you can start a new specification. If you think it's cool and you want to include it in Jakarta EE, you can just propose it to have it included there. So essentially, there's two levels. You can just start a spec, but it's not part of the platform. It's not part of
Right.
or the core profile. And the second step is that you do ask for inclusion into those profiles.
Yes. Do you think that's a strength or a weakness of the Java ecosystem, is that everything is standards driven, right? Like, yes, it produces extremely stable enterprise grade platforms and software, but at the same time, does it enable rapid, innovation
Well,
and technological progress?
It's
Ian, actually, just to take a step back, I mean, I wouldn't say that's the Java ecosystem, right? Like, one of the things I love about Java is that it's not one thing, right? So this is the Jakarta EE ecosystem,
Yeah,
right?
this specifically for
But I
Jakarta.
would, I would
Right.
say that
There's
Ian
Yeah,
is right because in Java we have basically a specification of the language, and we have at least two completely distinct implementations. There's OpenJ9 and OpenJDK. And
mm,
that's because it's possible because of the specifications. You can have two different Java
good
implementations.
point.
And another one is GraalVM, which is also written
yeah,
in Java, while the others are, I think, written in C, most of them, most of the
yes,
part.
yes, they
And
are.
the specifications of Java allows to have different implementations of Java itself. And then on top of it, you have libraries, you have frameworks, whatever. Jakarta is special because it tries to standardize what is on top of Java. So with Jakarta, you have another level of standardization. You can have application servers or runtimes frameworks that have the same APIs and work in a similar way.
Yeah,
The problem is when you try to standardize everything, cannot standardize everything because standards should be for proven things, for things that are meant to stay. And when people try to think that how do we standardize this or how do we put it into Jakarta EE, the best way is not always to put it as a
Mhm.
specification. One of the ways is put it as a library that builds on the standard APIs. And that's,
Yes.
for example, what LangChain4j and the integration into
Yes.
CDI does. There's
yeah,
LangChain4j is a library
Yeah.
that runs on any Java, but then there is an integration that fits well the Jakarta EE APIs and makes it easy to use
Yeah.
LangChain4j library in Jakarta EE in all those
Yeah.
frameworks and servers that use Jakarta EE.
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah,
And
And
and that's
kind
the
of
way
fit
I see it.
exactly
Like when
Omni.
there's something new, it should be a library that built
yeah.
on the standard APIs and can work, integrate with all the solutions that support the standard
Yeah.
APIs. And when
And
there's something already stable and worth standardization, then it can turn to be another
Right.
specification
Right.
of
Right.
Jakarta EE.
Yeah,
yeah,
so I
Wanted to.
wanted to
Arjen,
say did something like that with OmniFish. So OmniFish had a lot of JSF utilities, new features,
I mean,
but it was just in the
OmniFaces.
library. You could use it with any JSF implementation. And then
Yeah.
piece by piece, parts that like really worked, that were really appreciated by the community, we moved them into JSF, now called Jakarta Faces itself.
yeah, and
Nice.
this happens with product features in general, right? Like, OmniFish might come out with some amazing new feature, right? And everyone else says, "Oh, this is great," and then eventually it might end up in a standard. But like, you get to innovate on top of the core
Yeah,
platform.
What is important is that we try to build the features on top of Jakarta, next to it. Because then when it's next to it, it's hard to integrate well into the standard. For example, when you take Spring Boot, it builds almost all the features next to Jakarta EE. They are incompatible, so it's very hard to port them to Jakarta EE. Some of them were ported, but then, for example, CDI was like the idea of dependency injection from Spring Boot was basically Spring was ported to Java EE, but it's incompatible with Spring implementation, and they never adopted it. So that's the risk when things diverge.
Yeah.
Uh, if they are built on top of standard, then you can uh, you can take some pieces and standardize them. If they are just next to it and they are completely incompatible, it's much harder. And if you can put them into standard, the original thing still diverges. It's still not compatible.
yeah, so I do have to
That
say, by the way, that compared to the JCP, within Eclipse, are officially a code first. So we're not that heavy on the specifications anymore compared to the JCP, where you had like a specification document first, and there was an implementation a bit afterwards.
Mm.
We kind of do the things the other way around. So we first build a code, we show the code to the world, and when everything is kind of stabilizing, we kind of formalize what's in the code into the specification document and into the Java Doc API.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a much better way to go, definitely. Ian,
Yeah,
we should probably move on.
Sure. Sure.
What was your, do you have a last question you want to
I did
ask?
have one more question. Like, just looking at like some of the kind of milestones of evolution in the Java uh, and Java EE Jakarta, pre-Jakarta EE ecosystem. Like, you had Hibernate, right, which became JPA. You had Seam framework, which became CDI, and these were, interestingly, both contributions from Gavin King, right? But you had Spring framework, which contributed to the JSR 330 dependency injection standard. So you have industry players who are building individual developers, small teams, eventually joining larger companies and or forming their own larger companies and contributing groundbreaking, innovative technological, tools and frameworks to the Java ecosystem, right? And it feels kind
Yeah,
of like we reached a point where it's like we're not just in a holding pattern, like maintaining the stability, right? But where are those groundbreaking technologies today? I mean, now with like AI obviously has completely reset all expectations, right? So I mean, yeah, we have Lang4j, which is great, and we have compatibilities, but are we really still innovating, right? As a Java enterprise Java community, and or is that really part of the DNA of enterprise Java? Is to maybe it's not about innovation, maybe it's about stability and, like I said, the whole holding the like a holding
yeah,
pattern to ensure that stability while we innovate
absolutely.
on top, like you said on.
Yeah, absolutely. We talked about that, of course, a long time before. With Java EE7, we thought about standardizing something around cloud. With Java EE8, we thought about standardizing a NoSQL. But then we all thought, okay, it's a bit too early. So like a NoSQL is still evolving, cloud patterns are still emerging. So we were not necessarily innovative there. We waited until the market kind of stabilized, and then we provided APIs
Right.
to go along with these.
Yep.
With AI, things are indeed moving fast. So there is an spec started for that, the agentic API for Jakarta EE. Vendors have contributed various things. Within OmniFish, we did uh, started a project called OmniHai, which is the communication with various models, where you can like basically unify how you communicate with them from one CLI. So it's really the communication layer that's being
Like a servlet spec for
yeah,
AI.
yeah, it's basically
Or
like a servlet spec for AI. So like
is the
when you
same
send
API for every provider?
yeah,
Yeah.
when you send just a chat text, or you want to have audio generated of videos, and the library knows how to deal with all the different models that are out there.
Right.
Yeah. So and I think with that spec in particular, it's like, there was a little bit of discussion. I was it too early for that, but it's like it's kind of good to sort of start working on it now, because what's happening is if you look at like from the standpoint of building agentic applications, you've got Spring I, you got LangChain for J. Now you have OmniHai, which doesn't do all the same things, but there is some overlap, right? So, as we move on, we'll be able to say, okay, well, all these things do these things in a certain way. These are the things we can standardize. Um, so the way I see it is there's that aspect. There's like coming up with new specs. There's also like a NoSQL spec finally and a Jakarta data spec. Um, but also, all the vendors have, especially like Quarkus, they have all sorts of stuff. Some of it might end up in the standard, some might not. Some of the stuff you guys do might end up in the standard, some might not. So you guys will still innovate on top of it, because at the end of the day, like, your job is not only to nurture the ecosystem, but also sell a product that meets your customers' needs. So if you see gaps, you have to fill it in, like you were talking about the Jakarta security and microprofile security. Like, you have to fill in that gap. So
Exactly, yeah. So that's where we are at the moment. So like the different vendors are exploring different things. So like Quarkus is indeed doing things with the MCP server on top of Quarkus. OmniFish is doing the OmniHai project. It's completely driven by Bauke again. He's like the wizard in our midst that that does who does so many things. Um, so it's a question, what is exactly going to end up in a future spec? we're now exploring several ideas. The agentic spec has started, but of course it can take a long time for that to really deliver a 1.0 version. And in the meantime, the spec is incubating, it is exploring ideas while still within a framework of a future specification.
Right, right. All right, we should probably move along now. It's been like an hour and 45 minutes. I think we might be close to our record. I think our last one was our record.
Oh,
Um,
really?
yeah, I think it was because Michael Carducci was on. He talks a lot. So uh, so yeah. All right, so let's move on to the picks. We can just do these quickly. So Ondro, you had a couple there. We talked about OmniHai. How that's a great library for different AI providers, right? You had another one, couple more you wanted to mention.
Yeah, several picks recently. Like I'm as we talk about AI, we in OmniFish don't have a policy. Everybody basically explores what they can do and try what to see what works for them. So for me, what works kind of best right now is Amazon Kiro, which is like cloud
Hmm.
code, but it also has UI, so it's combination of cloud code uh, and uh, and what's the like what's the other like UI like IDE. It's a VS
Oh,
Code
it's
extent
VS
for
Code. Isn't it
fork
based on VS Code?
basically. Yeah, it's VS Code fork. It's
Okay.
like anti-gravity. If like Google has similar IDE now, it's called
Yeah.
anti-gravity. It's also a VS Code fork. Um, and I use like it's like an AI agent which also work with code. And I started using some MCP servers because I realized that, yeah, first I thought like it's it's able to run any command on my computer, so it can run grep, find, whatever. But then it has to parse everything manually. So if it has MCP servers, that it can be more efficient because with MCP it can directly ask for what it needs in some cases. And there I found out one MCP server which is quite helpful is for Javadoc. Uh, and because what I found out that the agent usually tries to find out what the library or what code does by extracting the classes from a jar. So it downloads a jar from Maven
Oh
or
God, yeah, it does that all
Git.
the time. Drives me crazy.
Uh,
Okay,
and
all right.
then
So
I
yeah,
thought
I'm
like
going to use
it's
this
good.
now. So
It's
yeah,
good to provide it Java doc so it doesn't have to load
yes,
back
thank
all
you.
the jars.
I'm like, what are
And
you doing? Also, the source code is in the Maven repository. Can't you just at least look at the source? Like, I'm sorry, go
yeah,
ahead.
sometimes you just need to tell it. And then
Yes.
when you have an MCP server, sometimes you even have to tell it to use the MCP servers,
Mm-hmm.
even if it's configured.
Yes, I do that all the time.
But then it does, and then it finds the documentation. But recently, when I found another one guy made an MCP server for the debugger to debug using GWB protocol, and then you can start any Java application, open the debugger port, and then the agent can debug it, put breakpoints, anything. Yeah. So that's kind of useful. I made it running on my system, tried to debug some things, but I'm just waiting for some big problem to
Yeah,
debug
I'm kind of
to
curious
see
to
if it will.
see. Yeah, I was saying earlier before we started recording that I started using the Chrome DevTools MCP server. And that's working out really well because it'll actually go in and like, totally debug some UI issue in the browser. So I'd love to be able to do that in the back end as well. So cool.
So maybe
And
I'll
all
look
those will
for
be
it.
in the show notes at stackedpodcast.com. You want to find these. Aryan had a new thing to tell us about.
Yeah, so one of the things we've been working on as well next to OmniHai is Hypospray. So that is a up and coming new CDI implementation. Um, so at the moment, there's really one CDI implementation, and that's Weld. There's of course
Mhm.
the derived ARC, but other than that, there's no real active CDI implementation. OWB still exists. It's very quiet. They don't interact much in the CDI spec process. So we started a new CDI project. And the thing is that this one is built completely with basically Java 25 in mind. So it was started
Nice.
ago, but we already targeted all the beta versions. So it uses the class file writer of Java 25. Um, Everything is completely based on the JPMS module system, which is a bit hard to do with the existing CDI implementation Weld. So I hope this is going to be quite interesting, especially since we don't have to carry all the luggage around and we started off with
Yeah.
completely fresh, almost no dependencies. There's a tiny dependency that we can still remove, and then we essentially have a CDI implementation with zero dependencies, completely based on all the new JDK APIs.
Nice. Yeah, that's kind of cool. I think it'll be like I like Weld, it's fine. But I think it's good to have something new. It looks like you're targeting CDI Lite first, which is
Yeah.
uh
So
makes it
we
easy
are
to do
targeting indeed CDI
implementation.
Lite. CDI Full is a step too far still. So CDI Lite will be the first target. Uh, but of course, with all things that we do need to find time and staff for it to
Yes.
continue
Yes.
working on it. That's
Well, and this is one of the
hard.
things I should mention that if you want to actually work on your CV or resume and you want to do open source, Jakarta EE is a really good place because we're happy to have contributors. So if you want to work on like a CDI implementation, which is basically like the dependency injection that's in Spring or any other framework, right? It's a really good opportunity.
Yeah, but we are really looking for contributions here. The main person working on this was Jan Beerning. So he's always a bit, how do you say that, in the shades behind the covers. He doesn't show his face publicly so much, but he has been with the team with us for a long time.
Right.
Um, I started the a company that I had with Bouke in Amsterdam a long time ago. It was in
Mhm.
2013. And he kind of was the guy that if Bouke didn't know something, then he went to Jan to.
Oh, that's the guy. I remember you telling me about him. Okay.
Yes, yes, he's the genius, the face behind the cover. So if Bouke was, okay, I don't know really how this works, then he went to Jan and asked how to do things.
Right. So that gives me a lot of respect for this project then. Um, so if anyone doesn't realize Baka is my colleague on a lot of our projects and definitely one of the first best developers I've worked with, and worked with Arjan on OmniFaces and the Mahar, the JSF implementation. Um, and as he says, he taught the LLMs everything they know about JSF, which I think is a pretty good way to say it.
I think indeed, yeah, I mean, he was the number one for JSF on Stack Overflow, and I think overall on Stack Overflow, the third biggest contributor with the highest amount of, what did he have, credits or points or whatever they were called.
Oh yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
nice, nice.
it's like the Stack Overflow guy. I think John Ski, the C Sharp guy, he was like a bit higher still, but it wasn't that far.
Nice. All
Yeah,
right,
quite.
so I've got a few quick picks of my own. So one is AI for Java. So as one of the things that Java Champions are doing is they have we're working basically we have an AI subgroup that's working to promote AI in the Java community and beyond. Because Java is actually really good for building applications that use AI. And James Ward, who is a Java champion and also works at Amazon and has been around in the community forever, he created a site called AI4Java.com. He's working on a book with Josh Long about AI agents. And AI for Java is actually this. I'm sorry, this is the wrong link. I'll put the proper link in the show notes. AI4Java.com is a different site, but I'll put the right link in the show notes. But anyways, it's basically a site where there's a lot of resources and stuff about AI. Fouye.com has a lot of resources as well. Um, but you can check that out. Also, there's Skill Jars, which is another James Ward project where you basically have it's skilljar.com. No, that's not it either. What is it called? Damn, I suck with links apparently. That was skill jars, right?
Is it Skills Jars?
Uh,
Skillsjars.com with an
okay.
S.
Okay. Thank you. All right. Yes. So it has agent skills on Maven Central, basically a place where you can put your agent skills on Maven so that you can have them consumed by your LM. So, all right. And the other one is Speaker Tracks, which is again that project that I've been working on for years that we finally launched. So if you like to speak at conferences, check that out, or just if you want to start speaking in general, there's a limited beta now, but there's a lot of stuff on tap. I actually last week I demoed an initial version of the MCP server so I could ask it like about questions about my sessions and stuff, which is kind of fun. So you should check that out as well. So. All right, so those are our picks. If you like this podcast, you should check out the other ones. Go to pubhouse.net. There's a couple other podcasts there, the Java Pubhouse and Off Heap that you can take a look at. And we also have a whole bunch of events. And I'll just blow through these quickly since Dano's not here. Wait, Dano is still looking at the document? Strange. All right, anyways. All right, so Devox UK. London, UK, May 6th through 7th. The Greater Wisconsin Software Symposium, Madison, Wisconsin in the US, May 28th to 29th. Twin Cities Software Symposium, Minneapolis, Minnesota in the USA, June 4th to 5th. Dev BCN in Barcelona, Spain, June 16th to 17th, 2026. And Ian says he's going to go there. He's going to take the 8-hour train ride and go up there. Lone Star Software Symposium in Dallas, Texas, and in the US, June 25th to 26th. Pacific Northwest Software Symposium in Seattle, Washington, in the US, August 13th to 14th. The Central Iowa Software Symposium in Des Moines, Iowa, in the US, September 17th to 18th. Java Zone in Lillestrøm, Norway, September 2nd to 3rd. And the Northern Virginia Software Symposium in Reston, Virginia, 24th to 25th of September. Also, I think another one I should mention is Dev2Next, which is what we call VenCatCon, is somewhere in the fall, sometime in the fall. Let's see, it is in, yes, October 12th to 15th, and that's in Lone Tree, Colorado in the US. So there's some fun conferences coming up. All right, so I think that brings us to the end of another exciting, long-winded episode of the Stackd podcast. Anything else you guys want to add before we take off?
Just want to say thank you guys so much for joining the show and keep up the good work with OmniFish and with Glassfish.
Okay,
Yes.
thank you very much. And okay, so good word to everybody. If you want to use something you may have not used before, try Glassfish, try Jakarta EE. It might surprise you how good it is.
Yeah, and where can they find you? Obviously, if they go to omnifish.ee, they can find you, right? Where
Yeah,
can they
it
find
There's
would
you?
be
also fun
I'm
funny
sorry, go
thing
ahead.
about the OmniFish.ee because it's not only EE, it's also Estonian domain.
Oh,
It is in
nice.
Estonia, so it's kind of fun, yeah. But yeah, that's the best place to find us. And we're also on Twitter, I think Blue Sky, LinkedIn. But we have a contact form on OmniFish, and you can use it also if you just want to ask us any question. It doesn't have to be business inquiries. So they can go
Okay,
ahead
sounds
and
good.
contact us anywhere. On GitHub, of course, we're on Glass repository mainly, but also other repositories. Yeah.
Okay.
So I'm glad we were
All
able
right.
to join you and
Yeah,
that you
thanks so much for joining us.
could
Yeah,
bear with
thank you so
us
much
for
for
so
having
long.
us.
Yes, and these guys are we record like in the afternoon in the Eastern US time zone, and these guys are like, 5 hours ahead. And, Ian is,
Well,
but he doesn't count
5 minutes
because
to.
he's used to it. So,
And where are
so
you, Ian? Ian.
I'm in Spain at the moment, so it's
All
Western
right.
Europe, same time zone as you guys.
Okay, that's
Also
convenient.
5 minutes to midnight.
But
Yeah,
I'm midnight. I
midnight
live
at the moment.
I live in Eastern time zone, but I live in CEST, but I work in EST, so kind of bridge the two time
But
zones.
you're used to being up now, so it's okay.
It's all good for me.
All right, well, thanks a lot, guys. We
Okay.
will see you next time on Stackd.